And Alan, I may ask you to do what you always do on Facebook for us and keep an eye.
Absolutely.
Since I'm presenting this week. Normally when I'm not presenting, I'll keep an eye, but.
I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. I think I did it. I think it's live. Let's see here. Sometimes I wonder if it's my computer or if Facebook itself is actually just that slow.
It popped up on my screen that is live.
Okay, great.
So I'm looking for it now.
All right, great. Because I was like, did I do this right or not? All right, perfect. So we'll give everybody just another minute and then we'll get started. But hi, everyone.
Hey there.
Hey.
Oh, I know we're probably not going to do introductions. I'll probably leave it up to Yawande, but I do want to introduce everyone to one of our, might be two of them that join us today, but one of our interns, our new interns for the summer through the Urban League Youth Employment Summer Program. It looks like she's in the car, so I don't know if she wants to unmute herself and introduce herself, but if you can.
I can.
And I'm gonna just say, don't look this way if you're driving.
Hi guys, it's nice to meet you.
I see you're not driving. I was just messing.
Yeah.
Are you gonna tell us your name?
Yeah, my name is Anasia Lyles. I just recently graduated from Atkins High School, and I'll be at ENTG in the fall.
Hey, oh, and there goes Mary Catherine. She's another one of our summer interns. Go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Hey, I'm Mary Catherine. I go to UNCW, majoring in communication and minoring in studio art. And it's nice to meet all y'all. I'm interested in hearing and learning from all you guys, so it'll be exciting.
Yay!
Great to meet you.
And I don't know that our third intern will join us. We have 3 this summer, and I love that they're all in different levels of education. So Mary Catherine is, I think you're a rising senior at UNCW.
Rising junior.
Rising junior, excuse me, at UNCW. Anasia just graduated high school, like she told you all. So she's going into her first year at UNCG. And Manu, who's not with us, hopefully he joins us. He's a rising senior in high school. And it's amazing. They know more than me when it comes to marketing and branding. Honestly, it's like, wow, interesting. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get started with this series. Just for purposes of today, I think I'm going to go ahead and skip the regular introductions that we may do, if that's okay with you, Yawande. Okay, great. So I'll skip the regular introductions that we would do. I will briefly share some information, and then I'll allow the co-presenter for today to introduce herself, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. So as many of you know, I'm Magley. I'm with Hustle Winston-Salem, and I'm so thankful for you all joining us for this series. Hustle, as many of you know, is an organization that's focused on inclusive marketing, inclusive entrepreneurship. And while we do this Marketing Outside the Box series, I thought that this was the perfect time to bring back one of our core values and do a series on inclusive marketing specifically for the Marketing Outside the Box presentations that we normally do. So the next 4 weeks, we'll spend some time discussing some of the do's and don'ts and best practices within various communities. Today, we're focused specifically on the Black and African American community. Next week, we'll be joined by Carla Mounts, who I believe is on this call. I think I saw her join us. Carla Mounts will talk to us specifically about the Hispanic and Latinx community. The week following, we'll have actually one of our Hustle board members who is based in New York, but is knee deep in the diversity inclusion work. He'll join us about best practices when we're marketing to the LGBTQIA+ community. And then I'll come back maybe with another co-presenter at the end of the month on best practices when we're marketing to women in general. So I'm truly, truly excited about that. And before I share my screen and get started, Yewande, if you would like to introduce yourself, kind of give people some background about you before we get started here.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. This is getting some weird sound effects, so just stop the point if whatever I'm saying doesn't come through clearly. But my name is
You're breaking
Yewande.
up a little bit, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'll try and get more stable. I don't know. But my name is Yewande, a fourth-year doctoral student at the University of Florida in health communication. My background is in history, and I also have a master's in public health.
You said your background is in?
History and public health.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me get our screen together and we will jump right into it. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. I know my computer is a bit weird sometimes.
Looks good.
You guys got it? All right. Perfect. So as I already shared today, and once again, Alan will keep an eye on our Facebook Live as well as the chat if any questions pop up. The flow of this, I think we have enough time to, if you have a question while Yewande and I are presenting, please feel free to just stop us and ask your question. But we do want to get through the presentation. It's not a long presentation, so I believe that we would have enough time. We are sticking to the 1 hour time frame as best as we can. So keep that in mind. Before we get started, I do kind of want to point out that I say this all the time when we're doing different topics, but we can only get into so much within an hour. So this won't be some in-depth deep dive of Black culture and African-American culture when it comes to marketing. We hope to provide you with some key highlights and things to keep in mind and hope that you will take that and continue to do the work on your own to get more information. Of course, Hustle is always a resource for you. But yeah, just wanted to make that point. And here we go. So I want to start today with just some quick understandings of when we're talking about the Black culture, when you're talking about Black people, just an understanding of who we are. And darn it, before I switch screens, I meant to ask you guys a question. Basically, how do you imagine or how do you describe Black people as a culture? I'm gonna hide that again because that's a screen, that's cheating. But if anybody want to unmute themselves, just kind of throw out some words. When you think about the Black community, think about the Black culture, anything specific words that come to mind for you?
Beautiful. First thing.
Vibrant.
Vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Power.
Power. Oh, I like these words. Yes. I like these words. Okay, cool. And yes to all of that and more, okay? So while I won't go through everything that I believe encompasses what Black and who Black people are, I will kind of touch a little bit on what you see on your screen here. So first, when we're talking about diverse population, we are a people of varying cultural backgrounds. So when you're thinking about Black people, it's not really just Black people. It's a lot that comes with being a Black person. It's a lot that comes with being African American as far as our culture. We have various skin tones, as you can see all the time. There's not a specific skin tone you can look at and be like, yes, that's what a Black person looks like. We vary from every shade you can think of. And our experiences make up who we are as far as talking about a diverse population. We have various religions. Like, you're not going to find Black people specifically only in the Christian or Catholic religion, or specifically only in the Muslim religion, excuse me, although that's probably where you'll find a good majority. All of these things factor into who we are when you're talking about how diverse our population is. When you're talking about Black people, we are creators, we are innovators, we are leaders. We created cultures based on music, dance, celebrations, food from our native lands. And for me, when I say our native lands, specifically talking about Africa and the islands, that's a lot of where our inspiration come from, all of those things that I just mentioned. And that's key to who we are. Black people, when it comes to tech, you know, I always find it interesting when we're having conversations about STEM and technology, that industry. When I look at the stats and I look at the numbers, and they're fairly they're fairly low for Black people in these areas. And it's really interesting because it's not due to a lack of skill or a lack of talent or a lack of know-how. We are digitally savvy, technology savvy. It's a lot of it has a lot to do with access and opportunity, and we're under-resourced in these communities. I won't get into all of that today. I'm going to charge you with making sure that you figure out why and what you can do to assist in those areas. But do understand, it's not due to a lack of capability why the African-American community is not as represented in STEM and tech, okay? And then when you're talking about the Black community, we're huge supporters of human and political rights and freedoms. And I truly believe this to my core. Write this down, don't ever forget this. You can quote me all the time, but in my honest opinion, at least in this country, Yewande can correct me if she thinks it's different for other countries, but I would dare say in other countries as well, when Black people win, everybody wins. Especially in America. If we can see some progress in a lot of different areas when we're talking about Black culture, I believe every culture, every other culture will also win. So when Black people win, everybody wins. We're huge supporters of human and political rights for a reason. Don't believe me? Just look at history. I won't get into it in detail again. We only have an hour, but facts are facts. But before we're any of those things, before you want to consider that we're creators or that we're tech savvy or that we're fighters for freedom or whatever the case may be, the truth is Black people are just human. We're people, we're mothers, we're children, we're father, we're families. And that's why I think a lot of marketers miss the mark. Marketers miss the mark. I crack myself up. But I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark when trying to market to the Black community. You're trying to put a group of people in a box or in a shell to meet certain goals. And the reality is we're just human. So think about any population of people like you would. So you do that with Black people. Whatever you would do to try to reach white people, whatever you would do to try to reach our Native American family, whatever you would do to try to reach our Hispanic family, you need to do the same thing when you're thinking about Black people. There's not an outlier there where you're like, should I do this because they're that different? No, we're human. And just whatever you would do to reach a mom, you might need to do at baseline the very same thing to reach a Black mom. Now, of course, as we go through these presentations, we'll provide you with some information that can provide you with key tips on specific things you can do. But at baseline, bottom line, you're going to do the humane thing when trying to reach our specific culture. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the things that we value, and I'm telling you who we are and what we value, starting that way so that you can have a better understanding when you're marketing that these things matter. These things need to be a part of your marketing, as part of your strategy as you think through what you're going to do next in whatever marketing level you're doing. So things that we value in the Black community, you can see it plain as day, every day. This is not new, representation. And we're talking representation on the screen, on the TV screen, whether it's in movies or a TV show. We're talking about in beauty industry standards. There are levels to it. So if you're doing an ad, whether it's an Instagram ad, whether you're gonna print some flyers and you're wanting to include Black people in this, which is wonderful, don't put us in a box. There are levels to Black people. Don't only figure you want to advertise the well-dressed, in your mind, well-dressed, nice haircut Black person, but you don't want to put on your flyer someone that's boots on the ground in our community that may not look exactly like what I just described. That's problematic. I know many of you may not be aware of this, but several states have passed, and a few others are trying to pass what's known as the Crown Act, because Black hair is a thing. Get into it. It's a big deal to the culture, and the fact that it's been centuries that Black people in a working environment are judged by their hair is insane. It's literally insane. So being able to have representation, people that look like us on every level, there's literally levels to it all, that matters. Quality matters to Black people. There's a unfair notion with a lot of brands that they would put certain stores or certain products within communities that are Black or known to have a heavy Black population. And the products and the services aren't always at quality. Put it there, you're not gonna get Black people to become a fan of you just because you put this poor quality business in a Black community. The Black community still values quality. It still matters to us. You still need to provide the Black consumer with the best. So when you're thinking about your products and your service and you're thinking about distribution, you need to put all of that into mind. It's a reflection on your brand when you do the opposite. And it sounds crazy, y'all, but it happens all the time. So brand alignment with social issues is very important to us. I spoke a little bit on the last screen about, progress and moving forward within the Black community and how everyone benefits. The Black community, this is a made up statistic, but I trust it, 9 times out of 10 will support a brand that has chosen a side in social issues and made their voice known. Staying silent with us don't work. Your silence means more to us than you know. We stay away from you because you're telling us something when you're silent, when social issues happen. And we're not talking about social issues that only are race related. We're talking about all levels of it. Once again, there are levels to this. When we see things in the workplace that happens to a Black person, it reminds us. When we're talking about how much you pay a Black person versus how much you pay somebody else, it reminds us. These are all the things that if we don't know that your company is doing a good job with this, especially as it relates to our community, we likely won't support your company, okay? And this isn't just for large brands. As you're building your business or as you continue to grow your business as an entrepreneur, these are things you need to build into the very footprint of your company. It needs to be woven into the thread of what your business is. We value authentic and sincere messaging. Don't put something on it. Don't put something on social media or on a flyer, on a TV ad just because you think we like it. Do the work, do the research to find out how authentic this is. And the best way you can do that, honestly, is hire Black people. Who best to tell you about us than us? If you're wanting to get an authentic message out in the community, talk to the community. Okay. I talked a little bit about this already in the previous slide, the diversity. When we say diversity within the Black community, we're so diverse as a people. We're not just, I'm not like, for me, take me as an example. I am not just a Black woman. I am a Black woman, but I'm a Black woman with Haitian roots, Bahamian roots, and I like to say Floridian roots, because that matters if you're a Black woman from the South versus your experiences if you're a Black woman from, I don't know, the West or something. But those things, they shape who I am as a person compared to Yowande's experiences. And she'll tell you a little bit about her experiences as she talks as well, probably. We value family. I don't even think I need to speak on this, but just like anyone else, family matters to us. So when you are putting perceptions of a Black family, sometimes we see TV commercials or we see movies and things like that, and they never seem to portray a full Black family. It always seems to portray a happy mixed family. And it's like, why? You don't think Black families exist and are happy? You don't think a Black man marries a Black woman, they have Black children, and live happily ever after. And those are the thoughts that come through our minds when we see these flyers and things of that nature, where in order for a Black family to be portrayed in media, it's always a mixed family. And there's nothing wrong with mixed families, but do know that portraying Black happy families is a thing, and we want to see more of it. We value fun. I don't know if Andrea is on a call with us, but Andrea is with Flywheel, one of our partners that do this program with us. And I could recall a few months ago, before all the coronavirus situation, we were talking in the office, and she just kind of said to me, she's like, my husband and I were at the park, and we saw a group of Black people, and she was like, man, y'all just have more fun. Y'all have so much fun. And she's like, I hope it's okay that I say that to you. It was absolutely okay. And I laughed, and I told her, I said, we do, girl. We absolutely do. We believe in it. It's part of who we are. It's built into our culture. We're talking barbecues. We're talking, our family reunions are ridiculous. It's a big deal. We're talking cookouts. We're talking games. And you can portray that in your marketing efforts, because it's who we are as a people. I don't know, I'm gonna stop there. Fun is a huge part of what we believe in. If something isn't fun, I'm not going. I tell people that all the time, even before this presentation. You need to build it into it. It needs to call out to me in a fun way. We value education in various ways, but I specifically want to talk about educational systems. Black people, we value HBCUs, which for those that don't know is historically Black colleges and universities, but we also value when a Black person have the opportunity in other spaces, and they have resources available to them to excel in those spaces. You know, many times we see situations where it's great that we have a Black person or two or whatever that had an opportunity to attend XYZ predominant school or Ivy League school or whatever the case may be, but then you have conversations and you really dig into what was that person's experience like, and it's ridiculous. And why is that? Why are minorities not receiving the same experience and resources at these institutions? Insane. So within the educational system, and this goes down to elementary school. I wish Kelly Easton was on here to talk a little bit about that. It goes down to elementary school up until our university systems. Like there is something there in mixed spaces where the opportunities are just not being afforded, and portraying opportunities in your marketing and showing that you value a Black person that went to a HBCU, or a Black person that went to a predominantly white institution at a state school, or Black person that went to Ivy League, that don't make us any different as a person. You know what I mean? We're all just as intelligent. We're all just as successful in our endeavors. So you can trust us all in doing business with us and doing work with us and hiring us. So keep that in mind throughout whatever you're doing. And then lastly on this screen, I want to talk a little bit when we talk about what we value. For those that don't know what FUBU means, it's for us, by us. In the Black community, I said this a few times, it matters to us what's happening in our community. We're socially aware, we're politically aware. So when it comes to business, it's the same thing. We keep up, we're aware of when someone that looks like us made a product, was part of the product decision process, is in leadership with a brand to make something happen. And when we know that, there's a 10 times more chance that we're going to support that brand, product, company, etc. So, and it really ties right in with being authentic. If you present something to a group of Black people that's for Black people, and it was designed and created probably with not a single Black person with you in that room, first of all, you probably missed the mark. But even if you did pique some interest from some Black people, the possibility of you getting full support if you were to do the opposite, saying, well, this product was created for Black people, with the room majority Black people, or at least there were X amount of Black people at the table. Percentage, I mean, not say number, percentage of Black people at the table making this decision with us, you have a better chance of us supporting it, because now we feel like, okay, you understand, you care, you're not just trying to sell. You're not trying to sell. So I'll hush down on what we value, and if I left anything out, Yawanda, you go ahead, and I'll switch over to you to take over, and you tell me when you're ready for me to move the screen forward. And before you do that, Alan, were there any questions or comments that I should be aware of before we jump into Yawanda going into this presentation?
Not yet. There's a
Okay.
number of people watching, but no questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yawanda? If you're speaking, I can't hear you. Yawanda? Is it me? Can everybody else hear me?
No, she's showing muted.
Oh, okay. You're muted, Yawanda.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I can't hear anyone else. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So when you're providing a product or a service as an entrepreneur, it's really a reflection of your core values. What you think is missing, what needs you want to supply or offer, or fill in gaps in ways that are familiar to your own upbringing and to how you feel and would want as a consumer. And just to transition, I'm in university. I'm studying for my doctorate in communication, doing health marketing, so marketing behaviors, but the marketing approach is very similar to traditional consumer marketing. And in a lot of the social research that we come across when it comes to discussing core values in the Black experience, a core value within that segmented community is self-presentation. And anyone that's familiar with data on annual spending trends can also confirm that. The numbers from Nielsen annually are projecting spending categories into the trillions. And this is very meaningful considering the fact that Blacks in the US represent such a marginal percentage population-wise, but they tend to greatly outspend their counterparts, especially when it comes to personal care products or brands that sell soaps, shampoos, lotions, shea butters, and the likes. Now, some of you may already be familiar with the specific personal care brand Shea Moisture, but I'd like to show you just a brief advert that they put out about 2 years ago.
People would like throw stuff in my hair, and then I'd just be walking and there'd be like little paper balls in my hair. People would like throw stuff in my hair, and then I'd just be walking and there'd be like little paper balls in my hair. I hated it because it's like, oh, I have this, and people make fun of me for it. It was lots of days staring in the mirror like, I don't know what to do with it. I just didn't feel like I was supposed to be a redhead. I dyed my hair blonde for 7 years of my life, platinum blonde. I didn't really embrace my natural hair. But then, as I got older, I learned how to do it, and I learned how to love it. Shea Moisture, holy grail right here. It just gives us all the results that we need. It's kind of that go-to product. I think a good hair day is the best kind of day. I feel like I've conquered the world. I love my hair. I love the volume. I love the curl. I love the texture. I love everything about it. Everything about it. Everybody gets love.
Okay, so we have the advert. I'd love to hear your impressions about this specific advert. If anyone would like to just weigh in, what are you thinking? How did you think the products looked? What the models look like? What your perceptions or attitudes are about the campaign not having hair hate, as they say? Anyone? Don't be shy. I'm not looking for any kind of expertise here, just naturally what you pick up on, or what comes to mind for you?
I think this is Carla. I think my impression was that it was not well researched really what the issue is. They just try to portray an issue with a very easy fix that it doesn't really speak what the true issue was, right? Where indeed shaming, the hair as shaming body, right? It's kind of like the same issue, and it's just, yeah, like it happens a lot in marketing, right? That we're trying to help or an issue using it as a marketing tool, but at the end of the day, it falls short.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the other issues is that knowing, like, if you are aware of where Shea Moisture has been and what they have done to get to where they're at today, that they've abandoned their base, right? Shea Moisture was something that was really kind of focused on, people of color, women of color, and women of color have a wide range of hair textures, and just based off of the imagery that's in this advertising, it basically limits the amount and it only shows the finer side of the full range, right? Where a majority of of Black women in particular, like, just may not necessarily have such fine hair. Their hair might be a little bit more coarse and stuff like that. So it just wasn't a well representation of who, like, essentially was the base. Like, they're clearly trying to expand it in this advertising, but everyone saw it. Because I've seen this advertising kind of like unfold in real time on Twitter and stuff like that. So there was some mixed feelings about it.
And I've got some comments from Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. Okay. What were the comments?
The Facebook viewers really started responding to this. So I've got several.
Okay.
Number one is, hair hate has been a personal problem for me, and that was great, meaning the commercial was great.
Okay.
Another one is, they put the core customer in the little time box. I wasn't sure what that meant, but then it was explained they didn't really have the core customer represented in the commercial. And then a final comment for now is, I find it interesting. As soon as I said final, another one came in. But anyway, I find it interesting that there are no women with hair that has an undeniable afro texture. I still feel betrayed by shea butter. And then the last comment is, besides trying to expand their base through marketing, their product ingredients changed. And then the person who said time box meant tiny box. So that comment makes a little bit more sense now.
Wow, you got it right on the head.
Can you repeat that? You broke up a little.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, everyone, Mr. Green, you actually really hit it right on the head. I guess you were privy to seeing it unfold in real time. And the challenge with, having a brand and putting out a campaign like this is that these.
You're breaking up again, Yawande. You said this is what? Did we lose her? Let's give her a second. I don't know. We couldn't hear any of that. You broke up. You went away.
Oh, no.
Can you start over?
Okay, yeah, no problem. Hold on. I just want to make sure. Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm so sorry. This is the day of all days. I promise I've been here my whole life.
It's okay. We're all dealing with the virtual reality. So we do this every week, so we know.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and just repeat that.
Just give me a church finger, and I'll just be looking out if there's any point where I can't. Okay. You're not hearing me.
Okay.
So one of the challenges with having a brand like Shea Moisture is that, and putting out a campaign like that, is that many of the women that helped to mobilize the brand from its early stages, this is what they look like. And they felt, just as Mr. Green was saying, betrayed because they weren't fully represented within that campaign. There's a concept in marketing research and in social research. It's called diffusion of innovation, meaning there are different categories of how one comes to like make commitments to new innovations. And you'll always have people that are what you call laggards, people that just wait a while before they jump on the bandwagon. But you'll also have what they call early adopters, who are willing to go out and buy the iPhone as soon as it drops. They want the sneakers as soon as they come out. They want to be the first in line to try the products. And Black women with kinky and coily textured hair were the ones that were really making the brand and carrying the brand forward before it was as accessible as it is now in your drugstores and pharmaceutical retail, places like Target. And part of that can actually be attributed to just plain old good timing, which is something that can be difficult for entrepreneurs. But the moment that Shea Moisture really started to get a foothold on the market happened to be during the time of a resurgence in natural hair. So you have all these trends in people trying to no longer chemically relax or process their hair. They're looking for products made with very simplistic and natural ingredients. And this is where Shea Moisture was able to fill in the gap. So next, I just want to move on to some of the lessons learned from this kind of case.
One more comment came in, and it was, I have never seen a commercial that focused on hair hate, and I appreciate it.
That's also a different perspective. I mean, normally I could see why one wouldn't want to do that, because in the history of like branding and marketing culture, you want to project the ideal of what kind of results you could have by using these products, as opposed to thinking about all of the challenges that you do have with the realities of, you know, your hair. So it was a unique approach. It just wasn't executed in a way that resonated with its core fan base. But I do agree that it was an interesting, you know, technique marketing wise. But it's never a good idea to alienate your core or foundational base. And one of the challenges that entrepreneurs experience is that when they amass a certain amount of success, and it's attributed to a specific demographic, notably Black American based demographic, you have to, you're at this crossroad to decide whether or not you're going to continue to cultivate your relationship with that consumer base or go what they say mainstream. And we've seen it happen, you know, time and time again. You know, when we think about networks like BET, Black Entertainment Television, you know, originally kind of like a homegrown network out of Washington, D.C., ran by Bob Johnson, and was later acquired by Viacom. And you see the shifts in the way that the culture is reflected in some of the programming. There's a stark difference, and people notice the changes in authenticity as a core value. Another fellow personal care brand example is Carol's Daughter. You know, a lot of people had reservations after Carol's Daughter was acquired by L'Oreal. So, you know, you have done the heavy lifting of establishing your brand, maybe as an entrepreneur or as a small business. And once you reach your peak, you want to see about trying to be acquired or, you know, get the most bang for your buck for all of the heavy lifting that you've done. And it just really is a gamble about like how you try to introduce that. Shea Moisture's way was by trying to kind of expand their base to look beyond some of the cues. I mean, when you think about Shea Moisture, you probably think about shea butter. This is, you know, specific to West Africa. It's a plant that comes out of a nut in West Africa. And you think about all of these different cultural priming that we have when we think about the name Shea, and then you now see it associated with like a larger spectrum of consumers, and it can be kind of confusing, so to speak. And so what ended up happening is the CEO, Rich Lou Dennis, actually kind of went on a bit of an apology tour. across Black media, just trying to reestablish the relationship. Around that time, he actually ended up acquiring Essence within the year after, and I know that really Essence magazine helped too. That partnership really helped Shea Moisture to renew their commitment to Black women that felt kind of betrayed by that business deal. Are there any questions or any feedback?
If I could just comment, the way when I watch this commercial, I have a biracial daughter myself, and what it said to me was, when you get this product, your child, you will be accepted. And that's just really pushes the agenda of assimilation to me more than acceptance, which was totally contradictory to what it seemed like they were trying to do.
Also problematic. One of the recommendations, if I can make, that's really cemented in a lot of the communication and marketing literature, is to always make sure that your message is short and sweet. And that it comes across very clear, that the call to action or whatever kind of resonant message you want your consumers to walk away with is very clear. This is a challenge that actually happens a lot when it comes to science communication. Science is one of those disciplines that, like, it's one way. We know this to be true one day until we get evidence to prove it different otherwise. And people look at that and they don't trust it because it's not a stable truth. And I would say the same when it comes to consumer marketing as an entrepreneur, especially when it comes to segmenting Black consumers. They want that old standard. We want the continuity and consistency within how you relate to them as a consumer base. And I want to bring up a study that I was able to do that brought in Shea Moisture and kind of their brand identity. Recently, I know many of you are probably familiar with Pantene. It's been around for a while. They recently, within the last year and a half or 2 years, put out a collection called the Pro Gold collection. And their intention was to kind of target Black women with this specific product. And they were an active competitor with Shea Moisture. And so in the study, it was actually published in the Howard Journal of Communication, and I'm happy to share that citation with anyone that might be interested. But we wanted to see if Black women would be willing to, would see themselves in some of the product messaging, the product identity, the brand identity, like which brands would they hold most resonance with. And we really got down to the granular level in terms of like what kind of language they were using. What did the women look like in the adverts? What did the products look like? What were some of the scents? What kind of things do people pick up on the way that a brand actually themes itself? And this was kind of happening in the aftermath of the controversy around the hair hate campaign. And surprisingly enough, nearly all of the women within that study identified as Black, identified dominantly as natural hair enthusiasts, and they identified with Shea Moisture as their preferred brand. So very interesting results, but it really goes to show you, if you go back to those core values that Magali was discussing about authenticity and representation, brand loyalty and having a brand that, in their minds, in spite of the faux pas with the hair hate campaign, they still have that sense of dedication and commitment because it still rings as being more authentic than a corporate version of targeting products toward Black consumers or Black women. So I just wanted to move on to some helpful do's for those that are trying as entrepreneurs to market to Black consumers. Really assess your brand. And when I say this, I mean literally do a SWOT analysis that's almost tailored specifically for Black consumers and at a very granular level. I mean, look at your fonts, look at your graphics, look at your images. There's even kind of a psychological approach to the colors that you use and how consumers really interpret any kind of color associations with your brand. You want to make sure that there is strong alignment with whatever mission or vision that you have in mind for the products and services that you sell and what you're projecting and what you're attracting. So having a real clear identity a clear understanding of what your brand is projecting and who you want to attract, it's my number one do, definitely. There's a reason why there are black women on perm boxes. There's a reason why one of the most popular grease brands is called African Pride within that demographic. People pick up on social cues, and it's a way of letting consumers know that I'm talking to you, even if you're not even saying anything, just by the images and the symbols and the fonts and the creative approach that you have to packaging your actual brand or brand or service. My next do would be examine your team. As Magali said, you want to make sure that your team members are either rooted in or representing or familiar with Black culture, because it's really hard to have a pulse on Black cultural norms without engaging people that are Black on your team. You want to make sure that you identify partnerships with people that make sense and that have the same type of respect and resonance within Black communities. And I say communities because I understand them, as Magali described, not as a monolith, but as many niche communities. There are certain things that we all kind of at the core are central values across the board, no matter what race-wise. But if you can tap into niche communities, it's really a great way to figure out how to tap into identity partnerships. And you see this with corporate brands sponsoring micro influencers, especially in the personal care brand space, letting hair influencers or people on YouTube try out products, do reviews, do giveaways. It's another way of utilizing their fan base, but not in the huge corporate way. It feels like you're talking to a brother or a sister or an aunt or someone that you're more familiar with, that doesn't have that celebrity or distance that you would, ascribe to a celebrity, And of course, you want to research your target consumer. And when I say that, there are opportunities for you to engage in market research and use certain software. I know Claritas and just Facebook analytics. These are ways for you to be able to target and segment parts of the Black consumer base based on your zip code, based on income levels, based on education levels, based on what kind of habits they have online, the best, peak times to be able to have paid marketing or advertising on certain platforms, looking at Pew Research, looking at generational information and insight. If I'm trying to reach Generation Z, is it likely that I'll do a Facebook ad and that might resonate with them, or would that be better for my boomer generation? These are all different types of insights that you can glean from the market research on that level. Are there any questions or anything? Okay, so we can move on to the demos. So just as...
I'm sorry, this is Alan. I was slow getting to my mute button. On the point that you made about identifying partnerships, and going back to what Magali was saying earlier, we notice who you're partnering with. And if you're not partnering with people that we feel can represent us, then we're not as drawn to you. But if you're partnering with organizations who we are comfortable with, and we know they not only speak our language, but they're listening to us, and therefore we feel like they're truly representing us, that's a partnership that is valuable. I think that some companies miss out because they partner with an organization that they think represents the Black community, but they don't really know that they don't represent the Black community.
Such a strong
Thanks, sorry.
No, I really appreciate that contribution. And this is why it's so important to assess your brand, to really kind of parse out who you say you are and make sure that there's alignment with the partnerships that you forge. You want to make sure, you want to look at boards, you want to look at who's in leadership, you want to look at what kind of decisions they make, what kind of relationship they have with the consumer base that you want to connect with. If it's contentious, that might not be the partner that you want to link up with in order to do any future collaboration. So that's a great, excellent point to mention that I really appreciate.
I would like to contribute. May I?
Yes.
I'm Dr. Aparna Sethi. I'm from India. and I work in the area of diversity and inclusion. So as the global movement is going on, you may would like to also have a look at a very interesting case which has taken place in India, and that is about cosmetic cream, moisturizer cream, Fair and Lovely. And the global movement has compelled this particular brand to change its name to only Lovely. And they have come up with the tagline called, it's not only fair, that's lovely. You know, so there is a lot of awareness happening around this particular cause. So I just wanted to keep you updated on this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Um, I'll just move on to the don'ts really quickly. I didn't realize how much. I'll talk
Oh,
a
we're
little
good.
fast.
I think we're good with time. We're good.
Okay. Um, so I don't need to go over alienating what I would call your day ones because we've gone over that point in terms of thinking about Shea Moisture's approach to the hair hate campaign and how that garnered some unexpected tension with some of their foundational fan base. Um, but again,
One second, Yawanda. Elaine, are you trying to share something with us? Elaine?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Yawanda. I'm
no
sorry.
problem. You want to make sure that you don't ignore social issues. And I mean, we can see it now with the energy of the moment in the days after some of the most terrible and unfortunate incidents with police violence against Black people in this country. I've seen statements from organizations and corporations that I had never, anticipated seeing. And it almost felt off brand, but it also felt, interesting. We're still assessing feelings on, whether it makes sense to have, Charmin come out with a statement or, a brand that really you don't think would have a stake in the game. But it really is kind of impressive to see who feels moved to put out statements and what they look like and how the public is perceiving them. We're all kind of processing this still, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of research related to this, but making sure that you do not ignore what's going on in the world and finding ways to pivot and make connections between what kind of products and services you offer in a way that doesn't come off as if it's inauthentic. But it lets your consumers know that you care about the world that we're all living and sharing. Of course, you don't want to rely on stereotypes. I think about, I hope you guys aren't sponsored by, well, I won't say any brands in particular, just to be nice.
We're an honest group at Hustle. You can say whatever you want.
I'll say otherwise, but I'm sure you've seen a lot of commercials where they look very exploitive in the way that they represent certain cultures and communities. And you don't want to look that way. You don't want to look that way as a consumer, you don't want to look as if you're supporting a product or a brand or a service that is plundering through a community that you're a part of. You don't want to be associated as an entrepreneur with a brand or a product or a service that is of no service to certain populations by misrepresenting them or relying on terrible, false, or exaggerated stereotypes. Again, related to that, you don't want to neglect the spectrum. Black, as Magali mentioned, comes in all shades, and I mean that literally and figuratively. There are so many rich experiences and identities out there that it's good to really consider the different opportunities and ways that you can forge relationships. I mean, now I'm sure there's probably a Reddit group for the most, craziest combination of niche group. I don't know, probably people that eat, eggs and watch anime on Saturdays at 3 p.m. There's probably a Reddit group for Black people in that. But that's how micro and granular you can get when it comes to developing partnerships and relationships, especially as identities and representation is just becoming so important and at the forefront. Now people are thinking about people's physical and mental and emotional abilities. I don't know, many of you go to Starbucks, but being able to sign with the person that you're making an order with, or letting people know that you have some sort of a challenge in the way that you communicate. These are all very progressive approaches to letting people know that you have an expansive way of looking at Black people from all types and walks of life. And lastly, I would say don't forget to reinvest. Just because you're an entrepreneur and you're offering a service or product, it doesn't mean that the relationship that you have to Black consumers is merely transactional. Some of the most meaningful relationships you can have are when you're able to make a reinvestment in communities that have helped to support you in some sort of way, whether that's charitable or by supporting some sort of initiative. Figure out what makes sense and what's authentic to your brand. And I'll just transition it back over to Magali.
Okay, and we I think we only have about 3 slides, so we're doing good with time because I'm going to plow through this and we'll be able to close out on that. But just some quick tips on how to reach the Black market. A few things we probably touched on, and it's intentional that you're hearing and seeing these things over and over again. But first, you need to do the work to understand Black culture and Black people. And then you need to identify your key Black consumer. Identify your key Black consumer. Just because someone is Black does not mean he or she is your target customer. So trying to draw a bullseye on the entire Black consumer market is lazy, unrealistic, and antiquated. So you don't want to do that. Do the work and research. Strategize about exactly who you're trying to reach. Are you trying to reach Black millennials? Are you trying to reach baby boomers, Generation Z? Are you trying to reach people that live in urban settings or city dwellers? Whatever it is, you need to determine what those key attributes are first and foremost. So once you know those things, then you add the Black factor into it, okay? So next, you want to diversify your content. As Yewande already mentioned, Black people are not monolithic. So at Hustle, we tell you probably at least every 3 weeks, content is king and queen. As it relates to going to specific groups of people, it's only king and queen if you do it right. So there's some questions you want to ask yourself when you're talking about content. And the interesting thing is it goes back to what I said in the beginning. None of this is new. So these questions that you're asking yourself, you're just talking about people. You're doing what you would do with any other customer base. So ask yourself, where is your customer? Is your customer online, or is your customer at a brick and mortar? What is his or her primary network? Is it social media? Do you have a customer base where you need to send mail-in ads? Whatever the case may be, do that research. What content is your customer? Is he or she consuming the most? Is it television ads, social media ads, whatever the case may be? You need to still do that work and provide that content, but then you diversify that content to include people of color, include Black people when you're trying to reach the Black community based on all of the things we've shared with you so far. You want to keep all of those things in mind. And then you also want to keep in mind that you want to approach marketing with some of the values that we mentioned before, but when you're talking about the Black consumer, faith, family, functions, and fun. Those 3 F's are there, those 4 F's, faith, family, functions, and fun. You keep that in mind when you're trying to promote to the Black community. Something else that I want to, we keep saying it, but I can't say it enough when I talk about diversifying and us being a diverse group. We've said it over and over, Black consumers come in many forms, and we're a multifaceted group. If your objective is, I just want to reach Black customers, you're going to fail. Your objective has to go deeper. When we're talking about doing those partnerships Yewande mentioned, I won't go through those examples in detail, and you can look it up on your own time, but you can think about how Apple partnered with Beats by Dre because they wanted to reach a specific target Black customer. You can think about how Procter & Gamble, they partnered with, or they did a My Black is Beautiful campaign because they wanted to reach girls and young women in the Black community. You can think about just this example with Coca-Cola. You can think about Coca-Cola, and some of you may remember they had the kitchen table campaign, and their focus was to reach Black mothers. They had to do the research, and you have to do the same thing when you're wanting to reach certain people in the Black community. They didn't just say, I want to reach Black people. They decided they wanted this specific campaign to reach Black mothers, and they did the work necessary to make that happen. And then once you do all that research, you want to focus your marketing dollars where your target is. You have to take the time to do that. If you don't put your dollars where your target market is, after you ask yourself that question, once you determine that, okay, my target market is on Instagram, this is the type of information they want to consume, it's memes. You need to put some money towards that. When you're talking about the type of content, it could be, and I know Eric is on the call with us and he can talk to you forever about this, but do you need to provide short form videos? Do you need to provide long form videos, memes, whatever the case may be? And I do understand that it's 1:30 and we're on our time. So if you have to go, I understand, but we're going to keep going for the next 5 minutes probably, just to finish this off. But, Nielsen did a study where it showed that Black households making more than $100,000 a year compared to white households making the same amount. When you do marketing advertising to both households, what they found was that when they marketed with Black people in an ad to Black people, the Black family was more likely to make a purchase than if they did regular ads to the white family in their study. It didn't really draw them into buying anything, and that's both families. The white family didn't purchase, or the Black family didn't purchase, or majority didn't purchase when they saw the ad where it was predominantly or only white people. And then when they showed an ad where it included Black people, the Black family purchased more. So they did that study. I don't remember the details of the study, so I can't refer you to it, but Google it. I'm sure you can find it. But it just goes to show you, back to that representation, it matters. It matters. And we talked a little bit about partnerships, and Alan mentioned it, Yewande mentioned it, but another really, really good example of that is Sally's Beauty. Some of you may be familiar with Sally's Beauty, but they partnered or they leveraged an African-American influencer that they know in the beauty brand to kind of be their ears to the ground and be their person to kind of guide them when they're trying to reach their Black consumers. And, you heard us talk a lot about hair and beauty brands today. And that's because when it comes to the spending power of Black people, if you do your research, that's where it's at. Okay. But Sally's was smart enough to say, I'm not going to rely on myself and what they have inside represented now. We're going to bring some Black people in to make these decisions for us if we want to reach Black people. And I encourage you all to do the same with your businesses, your nonprofits, your corporations, whatever the case may be, when you're trying to reach our group of people. And I won't talk about this too much. And as always, this presentation, we can email it to you. Just send us a message, hustlewsinfo@gmail.com. If somebody can drop that in the chat for them, either Alan or one of the interns, and we can send the presentation to you. But this is just a list of popular media outlets where you can find the Black community, where you can reach the Black community. If you wanted to share something out, these are the people that you can put some of your marketing dollars towards to say, hey, I want to get my brand in front of them. Or if you need a better understanding of the community, you can start with any of these places. And I'll let you know right now, these are on every level. Every single level you can think of. And Black Twitter, you can't find Black Twitter. That's not a thing. You can't go to Twitter and say, I'm looking for Black Twitter and search for Black Twitter. It's a concept. So get into it. How you find Black Twitter? Follow more Black people. You'll see it's a whole thing. It's a big deal. Get into it. Yewande, I'll let you close us out with the best practices.
I'll be more than brief, just, in respect to everyone's time here. I promise I'm not trying to make this all about research and lecturing, but a lot of the things that are done as best practices, they have connections to academic research and literature. And when I recommend or suggest maintaining clarity about your brand identity on a conceptual level as an entrepreneur and as a brand and as a consumer, there is a co-created relationship between brands and consumers. Because at the end of the day, brands want to project an identity that's going to attract a certain type of consumer, and consumers make purchases that resonate with their identity. There's a reason why certain people will only shop at Whole Foods. It says a lot about how they value nutrition, or organic food, or expensive food, or whatever their kind of taste levels are. Your values are connected to the decisions that you make as a consumer. And so making sure you really understand who you are, what your entity is, what you're offering, and what you want others to see in what you're offering, whether that's clear or not. Knowing your customer profile, and that's doing the market research on your current customer base, your prospective base, and your ideal customer. This is a relationship. And the more details you know, the better. The more intimately you can anticipate what people's needs are and how you can fill them with whatever you offer. Keep your messages short and sweet. Nice takeaways. If you keep it attractive and eye-catching, you'll get their attention. And if you make it short, it'll be memorable enough for them to carry it with them. Whatever message you have in mind to carry your brand forward as an entrepreneur. You want to use cultural cues so that it doesn't take a lot of mental energy or cognitive processing for Black consumers to know, hey, this person, this brand, this entity is talking to me. This is for me. You want to make sure that you get contact information and stay in touch. This is key for a lot of entrepreneurs that do email marketing. I know myself personally, especially in this COVID era, I have bought way too much from Bath and Body Works. I'm ashamed. But it's the consistent emails that I get from them, and the deals, and like having this cultivated relationship of being like, okay, I have an idea, I have a grasp about what's being offered, and it's always coming to me in a way that doesn't make me feel overwhelmed, but I'm aware of what this entrepreneur can offer me whenever I want to tap in. And then lastly, I would say pay it forward. Black consumers and what they offer as a base, as a segmented market of consumers, they're not a place for extraction. You need to think about ways in which you can reinvest, because again, we don't want to just have transactional relationships with Black consumers. We want them to be long-standing and meaningful and authentic, and we want them to represent the core values that Magali discussed earlier in the presentation. And those are my best practices.
And one of them that you skipped over, but I think it's important to mention, Yewande, is the one about remaining attuned to feedback.
Oh, definitely. I'm sorry I missed that. It's true. They say the customer is always right, but it's always better if the entrepreneur is always listening, because then you can make decisions that are tailored toward whatever their needs are, and understand where your weaknesses are that you wouldn't even be kind of clued in on. So watching, looking at your comments, if you have a brand or service that's offered and hosted on a social media platform, making it show that it's easy to get in contact with you. You have a contact us form or some sort of way to make sure that they can exchange their feedback about the experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all who were able to stay with us beyond. Can everybody hear me? Oh, okay. For everybody else able to stay with us beyond the additional minutes. As I shared, we can get this presentation to you. I want to close with something I started somewhere in the beginning with. Oh, Manu joined us. He's our other intern. But what I want to close with is saying, everything we shared today, y'all, none of it is new. None of it came up in the last month because of what's going on in the world. This has always been the best practices. These have always been the do's and don'ts as you relate to the Black community. And I'm almost positive when Carla talks to us next week about the Hispanic community, you may see some recurring themes. I'm almost positive when Matt talked to us in 2 weeks about the LGBTQIA+ community, you'll see some recurring themes, because at the end of the day, it goes back to that very first slide. We are all human. So you're kind of marketing to the same people. There might be some key factors to pull us in a little deeper, but at baseline, you're marketing to humans, people, families, mothers, fathers, children. And if you don't get anything else out of this presentation, that's what I want you to remember when you come up with your marketing strategy. when you're talking to the Black community, and next week when we talk a little bit more about Hispanic community, so on and so forth. And even though those are the 4 communities we're focused on, trust and believe there's so many others that we're not pulling into this 4-week series that you need to think the same way about, the very same way. When you're talking about members, I know we got to go, so y'all can go, but we're talking about members in the mental health community, our elderly community. There's just so many people that we could do a better job at. And I'll stop yelling at you like I'm your mother right now, and I'll end this because we're right at 1:40. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and call her Dr. Addie, even though she don't want me to. Thank you so much, Dr. Addie, for joining us and for sharing your expertise. And thank you all for sticking with us. If you need this, please email us and we will get it to you. Or you can always just go back to the Facebook Live and rewatch it. And I hope to see you all next week when we have Carla making sure that we know how to market better to the Hispanic community. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.